morning and welcome to our online service, a time shared by members and friends and visitors as a congregation of people in the spirit of First Parish of Sudbury Unitarian Universalist. This morning, we gather to find meaning, to participate in community, and maybe to find some small way to help make our community and our lives a little bit better each and every day. We've chosen to participate remotely as a commitment to one another's health and personal growth. This morning, we gather in love with open hearts and minds, endeavoring to create a time and space where all are welcome to bring their whole self, respective beliefs, identities, gladness, and sorrows. I ask you to leave nothing about yourself behind. We love and welcome you just as you are. There is a link available at the top of the First Parish website, the front page, where you will find this morning's order of worship, so please click on it to follow along. This morning's opening reading is especially for children present, including the ones that reside within each one of us. It was written by Angelus Arian. May you be powerfully loving and lovingly powerful. May you always have love be your guide with family, friends, and colleagues. Remember to listen carefully to your own heart and to the heart of others. May you have the courage to always follow your dreams. Take an action every day to support your life, your love of nature, and your integrity. May you have the strength to overcome fear and pride and instead follow what has your heart and meaning for you. May you be the guardians of truth, beauty, creativity, laughter. May you protect, preserve, and care for Mother Nature and the wilderness. May you show respect to people of all ages and races and help all living things keep their dignity. May you help make a better world for the poor, the sick, the elderly, the youth. Be an active, committed, and positive force in your community. May you value and maintain your health and the health and well-being of others. May you respect all the ways human beings access their own spirituality. May you create a global community committed to peace and nonviolence. May you keep learning, ask questions, explore, discover, and always maintain curiosity and hope. May you honor and respect diversity and the beauty and magic that occurs when differences join to create something far greater than one can imagine. May you constantly bring your gifts and talents forward every day without hesitation or reservation. May you honor your ancestors and all those who have gone before you, for they paved the way for you to do what you are here to do. With deep gratitude and respect for all that you will do to make the earth a better place in which to live. Join us in our hymn number 54, Now Light is Less. Please join me in lighting our chalice this morning. The words are located in your order of worship. We light this chalice to find inner peace, love for each other, and faith in ourselves. Also to be welcoming to whomever we meet and kind to all living creatures. So gather around this light of hope as we share this time together. This morning, we're going to be doing a story for all ages, and it was a story that Ben recommended. So I'm going to share my screen, find the story. It's called Freddie the Leaf Falls. Spring had passed, so had summer. Freddie the Leaf had grown large. His midsection was wide and strong, and his 5 extensions were firm and pointed. He had first appeared in spring as a small sprout on a rather large branch near the top of a tall tree. Freddie was surrounded by hundreds of other leaves just like himself, or so it seemed. Soon he discovered that no 2 leaves were alike, even though they were on the same tree. Alfred was a leaf next to him. Ben was a leaf on his right side, and Claire was a lovely leaf overhead. They had all grown up together. They had learned to dance in the spring breezes, bask lazily in the summer sun, and wash off in the cooling rains. But it was Daniel, who was Freddie's best friend. He was the largest leaf on the limb and seemed to have been there before anyone else. It appeared to Freddie that Daniel was also the wisest among them. It was Daniel who told them that they were part of a tree. It was Daniel who explained that they were growing in a public park. It was Daniel who told them that the tree had strong roots which were hidden in the ground below. He explained about the birds who came to sit on their branch and sing morning songs. He explained about the sun, the moon, the stars, and the season. Freddie loved being a leaf. He loved his branch, his light leafy friends, his place high in the sky, the wind that jostled him about, the sun rays that warmed him, the moon that covered him with soft white shadows. Summer had been especially nice. The long hot days felt good. The warm nights were peaceful and dreamy. There were many people in the park that summer. They often came and sat under Freddie's tree. Daniel told him that giving shade was part of his purpose. What's a purpose? Freddie had asked. A reason for being, Daniel had answered. To make things more pleasant for others is a reason for being. To make shade for older people, to come to escape the heat of their homes is a reason for being. To provide a cool place for children to come and play. To fan with our leaves the picnickers who come to eat on checkered tablecloths. These are all reasons for being. Freddie especially liked the old people. They sat so quietly on the cool grass and hardly ever moved. They talked in whispers of times past. The children were fun too, even though they sometimes tore holes in the bark of the tree or carved their names into it. Still, it was fun to watch them move so fast and to laugh so much. But Freddie's summer soon passed. It vanished on an October night. He had never felt so cold. All the leaves shivered with the cold. They were coated with a thin layer of white, which quickly melted and left them dew-drenched and sparkling in the morning sun. Again, it was Daniel who explained that they had experienced their first frost, a sign that it was fall and that winter would come soon. Almost at once, the whole tree, in fact, the whole park was transformed into a blaze of color. There was hardly a green leaf left. Alfred had turned a deep yellow. Ben had become a bright orange. Claire had become a blazing red. Daniel a deep purple, and Freddie was red and gold and blue. How beautiful they all looked. Freddie and his friends had made their tree a rainbow. Why did we turn different colors, Freddie asked, when we are on the same tree? Each of us is different. We have had different experiences. We have faced the sun differently. We have cast shade differently. Why should we not have different colors? Daniel said matter-of-factly. Daniel told Freddie that this wonderful season was called fall. One day, a very strange thing happened. The same breezes that in the past had made them dance began to push and pull at their stems, almost as if they were angry. This caused some of the leaves to be torn from their branches and swept up in the wind, tossed about and dropped softly to the ground. All the leaves became frightened. "What's happening?" they asked each other in whispers. "It's what happens in fall," Daniel told them. "It's the time for leaves to change their home. Some people call it to die." "Will we all die?" Freddie asked. "Yes," Daniel answered. "Everything dies, no matter how big or small, how weak or strong. We first do our job. We experience the sun and the moon, the wind and the rain. We learn to dance and to laugh. Then we die." "I won't die," said Freddie with determination. "Will you, Daniel?" "Yes," answered Daniel, "when it's my time." "When is that?" asked Freddie. "No one knows for sure," Daniel responded. Freddie noticed that the other leaves continued to fall. He thought, it must be their time. He saw that some of the leaves lashed back at the wind before they fell. Others simply let go and dropped quietly. Soon the tree was almost bare. "I'm afraid to die," Freddie told Daniel. "I don't know what's down there." "We all fear what we don't know, Freddie. It's natural," Daniel reassured him. "Yet you were not afraid when spring became summer. You were not afraid when summer became fall. They were natural changes. Why should you be afraid of a season of death?" "Does the tree die too?" Freddie asked. "Someday. But there is something stronger than the tree. It is life that lasts forever, and we are all a part of life. Where will we go when we die? No one knows for sure. That's the great mystery. Will we return to spring? We may not, but life will." "Then what has been the reason for all of this?" Freddie continued to question. "Why were we here at all if we only have to fall and die?" Daniel answered in his matter-of-fact way. "It's been about the sun and the moon. It's been about happy times together. It's been about the shade and the old people and the children. It's been about colors and fall. It's been about seasons. Isn't that enough?" That afternoon, in the golden light of dusk, Daniel let go. He fell effortlessly. He seemed to smile peacefully as he fell. "Goodbye for now, Freddie," he said. And Freddie was alone, the only leaf left on his branch. The first snow fell the following morning. It was soft, white, and gentle, but it was bitter cold. There was hardly any sun that day, and the day was very short. Freddie found himself losing his color, becoming brittle. It was constantly cold, and the snow weighed heavy on him. At dawn, the wind came that took Freddie from his branch. It didn't hurt at all. He felt himself float quietly and gently and softly downward. As he fell, he saw the whole tree for the first time. How strong and firm it was. He was sure that it would live for a long time, and he knew that he had been part of its life, and it made him proud. Freddie landed on a clump of snow. It somehow felt soft and even warm. In his new position, he was more comfortable than he'd ever been. He closed his eyes and fell asleep. He did not know that spring would follow winter, and that the snow would melt into water. He did not know that what appeared to be his useless dried self would join with the water and serve to make the tree stronger. Most of all, he did not know that there, asleep in the tree and the ground, were already plans for new leaves for the spring. I'd like to have Michael start our musical interlude. This morning, today is All Souls. Also, welcome to Turn Back an Hour. Nice getting up a little bit later. But this morning we will gather and share in a ritual that is about honoring our ancestors. This is a time to remember to open our hearts. It's a time for tears. It's a time to acknowledge loss, sadness, and embrace the grief that is still present in our hearts. Sometimes it's harder than others to express this kind of thing, but step forward, step into it. This is a labor of love, compassion, and community. So let us begin. Does anybody have something that they would like to share with us? I'm going to just open up the view.
Okay, well, I guess I'll go first because I'm not sure how well I'll do. I'm going to turn, I've made a little altar for my brother. Tell me if you can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. So my brother Doug, right here, died on March 7th, just before COVID-19. My sisters and I were able to be with him, and that was wonderful. We didn't see him a lot during the years, but when he did, he was all with us. And so this altar has pictures of him when he was a baby, when he was with our family, and then up in Michigan where he lived by himself. He loved to garden, so I've got some flowers there. He loved the Cleveland Indians where we grew up. And the hat that says zoo on it is for our Zvertnik family. It was for our reunions. So I love him and miss him.
And you did just fine.
Thank
you. We're sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Who else do we have that has some photograph or anything to share with the group? Terry Lockhart.
This photograph is my entire family on my father's side, plus my mother right here in 1955. And I love them all dearly. My grandparents, my father's parents right here, were, they passed very much too soon. Heart problems that my grandfather's heart problems might have been the same ones that I had, but they didn't have pacemakers in 1955. So there it is. My father, a real gem of a man. 3 wives all said the same thing. His brother, my Uncle Frank, his best friend, who just passed this past year. And of course, my mother, who died at the ripe old age of 48 of Hodgkin's. And I miss her every day. So that's about that for me. But this is a photograph I cherish. There I am down in the corner here.
I was wondering.
My sister Connie, my cousin Nancy, who is my same age. We were born 4 days apart. She lives in Pennsylvania, not far out of Pittsburgh. And my youngest sister, Ginny, who lives in Canton, Ohio. So there we go. And my Aunt Helen and Uncle Jewel. And Helen was my father's sister. Uncle Julian was a doctor in California, and he did a lot of good stuff too. Anyway, there they are. And I've often wanted to show that picture, and I've always forgotten to bring it to put on the altar at First Parish. So here I could just share it digitally. So thank you.
Thanks, Terry. And sorry for your loss. I know that even though it's many years ago, it's hard to, it still sticks, right? Even today. I think I saw Peg put her hand up. Peg, did you put your hand up?
I did. I made this nice little altar and I don't know how to.
Can you tip? Sometimes you can tip a screen or, oh, there it is. We see
There it
it.
is. Okay. Now you've seen that I made a nice little altar. Now I can pick up the pictures and show them too, because
Sure.
somehow or other this isn't doing it for me. Um, well, I have here, and I do bring this little triptych of my parents, Helen and Jessie Roberson. They lived long lives. I really have nothing to complain about in that regard. My father lived into his 90s. That picture was taken not long before he died. He was in a nursing home for 5 years with TB that had gone to his brain, but he got a lot of that back. And he would, it was at St. Patrick's Manor. I called him the Jew of St. Pat's. Yeah, and he liked to, he accompanied the Monsignor Regan Men's Choir, and they went from nursing home to nursing home. This is my beloved husband, Ron, who some of you old timers here knew, and he passed away at 49. So that was terrible, terrible loss. And then, oh, my brother Jay, and we had a nice little service for him here. He was in a group home. He had a lot of challenges, shall we say, but I loved him dearly, especially as I got over, sibling crap. He lived to be 72, which was quite remarkable given all the meds he was on. And then I have my dear friend Dave, who some of you knew as well, who was my companion for a couple of years. And more recently, but it's not recent. I guess it was 10 years ago, which is really not that long ago. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry for your loss. I know it's not easy.
Well, it's been a long time.
Aline?
Aunt Adrienne Boissel. She was also my godmother, and she passed away on Thursday at the age of 98 from COVID-19. I took this picture of her in February, which is the last time I saw her. She was in a nursing home, and my cousin, her son, said that the isolation is what really did her in. Adrienne was a very, very gregarious person. She loved people. She loved looking at pictures of places we'd been and family. And she loved listening to conversations. I would sit and argue with my cousin about politics. And she would sit there like she was at a tennis match watching the dialogue go from one side to the other and smiling and just loving it. There are some people who, they get old and it's hard to have a conversation with them. They don't remember things. They can't think of anything to say. But we never had that problem with Adrienne. She would talk a mile a minute. We would talk. We would have a lively conversation. And on the last day that I saw her in February, my sister was there with her husband and they left. And then Adrienne and I talked for an hour about all sorts of things, what was going on in the world, my grandmother, who was her mother-in-law. It was just wonderful to be able to be with her. And at the time, I never dreamt that that would be the last time I would see her. And of course, none of us knew that COVID was going to separate us from all our loved ones. Oh, yes. Seth says something about her letters. She would send letters and cards, and as she got older, she had this big looping handwriting. And as she got older, the loops got bigger and bigger until it was almost impossible to read what she was saying. And Seth was actually better at deciphering it than I was. But, she would send pictures, she would send clippings, she would send cards. She was really just amazing in the way she kept engaged with the family. This is, this is the last time I saw her.
hard to lose people. No way around that. So I'm sorry for your loss, Aline.
So I've been doing this project with some stuff from my ancestors. I have over 300 letters from my great grandparents' generation, 1875 to about 1890, 1900. And Sully, no, Sully. Sorry, the puppy. And so I've been reading these and scanning these, and in the materials is a picture of my grandmother and grandfather from the offshoot of that generation, and the guy who actually was part of that generation, this little guy here who came from Sweden. So I'm sort of on this great journey of discovery. A bunch of the letters are in Swedish, so I have to find somebody who can read Swedish. But I'm finding out all kinds of things that I never knew, and sort of kind of, making those people real to me when up to now they've been just sort of, just figures of history that I didn't know much about. So I often have dreams about being able to go back and talk to them. So that's my little altar.
Thanks, Dave. Who else do we have?
I did something a little different. I'll move this camera for a minute. Okay, so I collected some objects
Nice.
that would represent my grandparents on both sides. And so there are onions and potatoes to represent my grandpa Tratnik, who was in the Navy as the ship's cook. And he loved to provide big holiday meals for all of us. So food was a big part of his love for his family. And the cross-stitch tablecloth underneath it is my grandma Tratnik, who I think was a teacher of kind of quiet perseverance. She was a good Catholic, but that meant she had, I think, some quiet strength. And then behind it, there's one of those little books, little children's books. That one's called A Friend is Someone Who Likes You. And it's illustrated by Joan Walsh England. And I don't know if any of you remember her. She's
Pretty well known.
But she made these little friendship faces. I guess this won't focus. Oh, well. But that was my grandma, Chris, who was Mom's mother. And she was a very kind person and knew how to make small gestures that were sweet and thoughtful. And so that even though I'm not sure she gave me that book, that seemed like a way of representing her to me. And then behind there is actually a paper of genealogy that explains, how your grandparents and your cousins and first cousins and second cousins and all that. Here, mommy, hold it up. So there, it's not our actual family tree on the crystal side. It's, but it represents the one way I could connect with my grandpa Chris, that's Mom's dad, was about genealogy. We had some interesting conversations, Grandpa Chris and I. He actually came to visit me in college to sit down with me and explain to me how I was reducing the number of eligible husbands by going to college. But we had a great conversations about family and and genealogy and family history. And so I was just thinking about my 4 grandparents, because I was really lucky to have all 4 grandparents throughout my entire childhood. And they were really important relationships. So that's my story.
Thanks for sharing, guys. That was great.
So Mom just died 2 weeks ago, and I had Reverend Marjorie read in the service that one of Mom's earlier and most embarrassing accomplishments was to be Miss Runner-Up of the runner-up to Miss Atlantic City in 1946. So here's the picture. Can you see it?
Yeah, you got to turn it a little bit because the light, there you go. Wow.
So there she is in the dress that was made by my grandmother for her. And then more recently, this is Mom and Dad on one of their many travels. Is that in focus?
Yep, that's good.
So they're together again.
Yep. We hold you in love. I know it's a hard time.
One of the pictures I have in my office, if you guys can see this is a now you're seeing a reflection, right?
Yep, no, we're seeing it now though. Let me see if I can actually make it a little bigger for people. Hang on. People see that better?
It's actually a 2-4 picture, right?
Oh, nice.
So it's my grandmother is the one that's on the bumper, and her sisters are flanking her on the I guess those are the fenders of cars well built back in the day. And I figured this was quite the pair because my grandfather is in a similar car, kind of like a rough bunch of fellas you might want to avoid. But back in the day, this was a car, let's say, was a transportation vehicle for some fun stuff. But he is the one that's looking over the hood. My grandfather there.
Very cool.
You know, I have a lot of my ancestors' pictures in my office, and the one that you probably see on my Facebook page often is this one, which is the Duval family. My grandfather and grandmother in the middle, and my Uncle George, which is my father's oldest brother, is sitting on their lap as a baby. This is circa 1924. The older gentleman off over here is my great grandfather, George Duval. And these guys kind of settled. This was the generation that settled out of from Quebec, from Cap Saint Ignace, Quebec, and settled into the Brunswick area of Maine. But I think of these folks, and the way I remember my mom and dad is they used to travel a lot. And this is like circa 1984, and this was their big European tour. And, you know, I remember them, I miss them. I think of them daily, you know, and, you know, yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
We'll keep them in our hearts and our thoughts and our prayers.
Excellent. Hi.
Hi.
I want to give a shout out to Scylla Rising, who just drove over and gave some excellent speakers that we could trial for Anita to be able to hear this better. And they really work. So if Scylla has gotten home and can hear me, I don't know if she might be on another page, but the speakers are excellent. So can't thank you enough. And hopefully Anita can also speak back. And so in future weeks, this will work better. However, it seems that we've missed the homework note. We didn't build a shrine to anyone, but I would like to say that this week we had a really interesting conversation regarding my grandparents and my mother's experience in World War II. She has a neighbor here who is Elizabeth, who had a 91st birthday, I believe, and invited Anita and myself over for cake and coffee, and her daughter Karen was there. And I had not met them because, again, I was living in Maryland. So it was very fun to be introduced to them and all. But Elizabeth, as it turns out, also from Germany, had a very similar story to Anita's. And this was being a child of World War II. So we got to talk about my grandparents' experience, both being a soldier in the war, and my grandfather was lost, so I never met him, contrary to someone who said they were lucky enough to have their grandparents. I missed out on that, and I regret that. So it was really interesting to kind of relive the sort of path that my mother and her family took through the end of the war. And Elizabeth's daughter, Karen, had looked into it a lot too. So in our own way, we were speaking out to our ancestry and learning about it. It was good. Thank you.
Thank you. Show you my altar a little bit. This is a picture of my parents. Let me see if I can get it so you can see it. My dad was a Navy guy. My mom was wild. They had a lot of fun together. Both of them died young. My father died at 59, and my mother died at 68. And through all the years, I still miss them like crazy. I don't think I'll ever not miss them. So when we think about missing our people, it's just always there. You know, it's always in our heart somewhere, that little hole that only they could have filled, right? And so as we think about those folks we've lost, and who we miss and who we wish were still here, I want to light this candle. I'm going to flip this down a little bit so you can see it. Light this candle for all of us who have lost, who have loved and lost, and who grieve to this day and will probably grieve for a long time. So let us hold them in our thoughts and our prayers, all those who have come before us, all those who have shown us the way in many different days and opportunities. So let's hold them, hold them, hold them. There's a tradition of calling out the names of the dead and disappeared. Each name is called, the people respond presente, meaning present. The presente is an affirmation of the ways in which we carry forward the purposes and meanings of the lives of our dead. Presente. They are here in spirit within us and with us and among us. Before we start calling out names of our dead this morning, I'd like to begin by remembering all those who have died this year because of violence, war, terrorism, COVID, clearly. Those unsuspecting sisters, brothers, and others who got caught up in the way of ill intention. For them, let us say together, presente.
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 Please join me this morning, All Souls Sunday, in a presente for those whom we have loved and lost, invoking their spirits and their blessings. Please call out the names of your dead and let us all respond together between each name with a call of presente. And we'll just continue this on until it naturally ends. So let us begin.
Doug Doxey.
Presente.
Presente.
Adrian
Johanna
Parson.
Norman.
Presente.
Presente.
Ed Lewis.
Presente.
Presente.
William O'Rourke.
Presente.
Presente.
Doris Spelber.
Presente.
Presente.
Raymond.
Melvin Bressler.
Presente.
Presente.
Alan Clark.
Presente.
Presente.
Glenn Morris.
Presente.
Presente.
Georgette
Mary
Duval.
Lockhart.
Presente.
Alexina Tayo.
Presente.
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 Janet Rice Mortimer Stalker.
Presente.
Presente.
Harold Gillingham.
Presente.
Walter Gribbon.
Presente.
Presente.
John Wright.
Presente.
Presente.
Bull Schroff.
Presente.
Presente.
John Fox.
Presente.
Presente.
Pitt. She's this year. Oh no, it's all over.
Presente.
Presente. Uncle Chip.
Presente.
William T. Appling.
Presente.
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 Don and Betty Bishop.
Presente.
I didn't know that.
Eleanor Kafalis.
Presente.
Barbara Hoffman.
Presente.
Sylvia Klein.
Presente.
Nancy Moore and Helga.
Presente.
Dusty Reed.
Presente.
Mia Russell.
Lori Parkhill.
Presente.
John Taft.
Presente.
Jackie Reiner.
Presente.
Carol White.
Presente.
Marsha Bingler.
Presente.
Carolyn Bridge Mohan.
Presente.
Ted Jones.
Presente.
Morgan Mortimer.
Presente.
Presente.
Laura and Edward Gribben.
Presente.
Martha Hoagland.
Presente.
Sarah Ann Stalker.
Presente.
For Marge and Bruce, Lisa Langmuir.
Presente.
What?
Paul Conover.
Presente.
Tony Russell.
Presente.
Presente.
Carol McCree.
Presente.
John Langmuir.
Presente.
John. Could be his brother, his father.
For all those whom we've called out and brought together with us in this moment, we pray. For all those who haven't come in or haven't been spoken aloud, but have been spoken in our hearts, we pray. Let us hold them. Let us hold them as they hold us. And remember, for they live on in our memories. For this we pray. Blessed be. Amen. Michael, if you could bring our musical interlude.
Did you scratch your face?
You know what? I have this scar, this blue there that just doesn't go away. I keep thinking at it.
It's red.
Oh.
what are those moments strung together like beads that mark a difficult year or a set of difficult years? Time filled with uncertainty and disappointment, tragedy, loss, improbable circumstances come at us like those tennis balls shot out of a tennis court cannon, just rifling at us, each one after another. With each new blast, we are surprised, sometimes stunned, and we feel in our rawest of times shocks that can cause our heart to drop, fill our minds with angst and confusion. Yet in these difficult times, we can also see the potential of silver linings that contain insight and wisdom and even relief at times. We have faced so much challenge and change and loss. Some claim PTSD, and I get it. This can happen when one is emotionally or physically wounded over and over again. And the news alone that we are presented with, the statistics and circumstances of our current reality each day, week, month, who could have known or imagined this year would bring a plague to our shores and to the shores of humanity? This pandemic has been revealing, very revealing, with regard to how people respond. Leaders, the famous, the infamous, the influencers, the CEOs, you and me. This is a silver lining in my book, because we no longer have to guess or wonder at someone's intentions. Intentions are clear. Those who are genuinely kind and compassionate shine bright. Those who really care about all of the people shine bright. And unfortunately, it's also clear those who are self-focused, greed-filled, inconsiderate, unfeeling. And in some ways, that's a silver lining. On All Souls, a time when we honor, celebrate, and grieve our loved ones who are no longer with us, we are reminded of our own mortality. This year, we have seen that death comes, whether from violent action, misconduct, accidental situations, illness, or age. We now live during times when patience runs short on occasion, locked in, shut down, longing for companionship, longing for normalcy, angry and untrusting of those in authority. Who knew that this is what 2020 was going to be like? I didn't. And with each day and month, I reflect on the journey that we have been on. Am I kinder? Am I more compassionate? Am I less afraid, more present? This experience is changing me, and I can imagine that it's changing all of us as well. This, I believe, is a silver lining, even though it comes at what seems a very high cost emotionally. This week, with the impending election and all of the brouhaha around such events, I needed some moments of sanity. Maybe I'm not the only one. Some space, some comfort, especially as a third wave of COVID spreads out across this country and the world. I needed time to think, to pray, as another outrageous act of police violence in Philadelphia brought people yet again to the point of anger and demonstration. After yet another Black man, Walter Wallace, 27 years old, was shot numerous times, killed by those who were paid to protect him. How can this be our new normal? All of this violence, all of this fear, all of this threat. Is there a silver lining in all of this? I turn to the words, seek and ye shall find. What is the silver lining? To make sense of all of this and to find comfort, I turn to poetry, as I often do. I began with Rumi, a 13th century Persian poet who was a Sufi, the mystical arm of Islam. Rumi was known to love his God deeply and expressed that love through his dancing meditation. He was a whirling dervish and writing poetry. Rumi wrote about grief. He shared, "Don't run away from grief, O soul. Look for the remedy inside the pain, because the rose came from the thorn and the ruby came from a stone." This snippet of humble honesty sat squarely in my mind this week as I reflected on the year that we have had and continue to have. I thought about all souls, big and small, how we each feel lost at times and lonely, how we each grieve over so many things as we process the sting of reality that formulates the outcome of this life. I wrote in my journal on Tuesday these words: pain is the price we pay for love. When we love, we care, and thus we are vulnerable to our core. It is dangerous to be so vulnerable, but would we choose not to love in order to be safe? This question made me think for a moment that I might be a cynic. Or am I? Am I really a cynic, or am I just speaking truth to myself? Pain is the price we pay for love. In all honesty, I'd pretty much do just about anything for love. With that said, I try to avoid pain at all costs because I have felt the sting of pain too often and in many ways. I even made a pledge after my father died to never love again, period. I was 24. Because the pain of his love made me very aware just how dangerous and scary love can be. It took me time, but I've embraced love again, wholeheartedly. This week, I discovered a blog post from Dr. Diana Cunningham, the director of the John Muir Memorial. She unpacked loss in a very meaningful way, so I would like to share that with you. How many of us go through life only to find ourselves suddenly faced with someone's death, caught in a state of shock, numbness, confusion, or even paralysis? We awaken one morning to find a tsunami of sudden loss, all the feelings that accompany this experience of overwhelm. A tragic accident, a sudden heart attack, suicide, mass shooting. These are part of our mindset in an instant when we have the woes of the world online and in our hands. She also reached for Rumi as I did, including snippets in her writing. She continued, having the deep experience of personal grief has the benefit of opening our hearts to another's pain and greeting a well of empathy and compassion we never knew we were capable of. As that most wondrous medieval but timeless Sufi poet Rumi wrote, I've broken through to longing now, filled with grief. I have felt before, but never like this. But never like this. We know this type of pain, right? As we call out our dead, we know this type of pain, deeply emotional and raw. A mother once came to the Buddha, asking him to resurrect her child who had just died. Grief-stricken, raw, lost. The Buddha explained that he would do this, but it would require that the woman find a mustard seed from a home that had not experienced the death of a loved one. I think the Buddha knew which he would find or not find. After scouring the entire city, the mother realized that she was not alone in her grief. All wished her well. All hugged her in love. And that we all, at some point or another, experience the pain of loss. Dr. Cunningham explained that in her own grief, she also discovered that at some point, everyone has grief. Everyone has a fear of death. And even deeper than that, everyone has a fear of the abyss. This is the terrible feeling that deep down one has not made their mark on their life, which she explains is insignificant and utterly meaningless. She, as I once did, turned to Kubler-Ross for meaning and understood the 5 stages of grief that helps us to realize that we are encapsulated by emotion and that these moments comprise a journey that is long and hard. Through the daily practices of receiving empathy and having empathy for ourselves, we develop a life skill that helps us move through grief. The journey through this tunnel is full of compassion and understanding if one is willing to look for it. The light or gift at the end of the tunnel, you may be surprised, is joy. Joy arises when we realize that love has been there with us all along. It has given us the very strength to persevere. The pearl of wisdom resides in different places for each one of us, depending on where our journey has taken us. For anger, the message might be, what injustice or wrong needs to be made right in my life? For depression, the message is to stop and look for what is not working in your life. For sorrow, the message is to realize that no sentient being on this earth is exempt from grief. From the bee to a blue whale, all grieve at times. The degree of sorrow we feel is a full-on reflection of the love we felt for our beloved one. The degree of sorrow we feel is a full-on reflection of the love we felt for our beloved one. Over time, I began to realize that the love I felt is eternal and infinitely vast. The one you thought was lost actually lives on in your very heart and mind, ever present, just a little less right here and physically touchable. Turning back to the insight of Rumi, a teacher of teachers, I ask us to look within and honor the wisdom that we have each cultivated on this journey of love, loss, and even a deeper sense of love when we gain understanding and freedom. The poet unfolds his words for us. A step towards your own heart is a step toward the beloved. In this house of mirrors, you see a lot of things. Rub your eyes. Only you exist. My work is to carry this love as comfort for those who long for you, to go everywhere you've walked and gaze at the pressed down dirt. Goodbyes are only for those who love with their eyes, because those who love with their heart and soul, there is no such thing as separation. This night extends into eternity, like a fire burning inside the friend, truly knowing this is what joy is, forgetting it is grief and a lack of courage. Life is ending? God gives another. Admit the finite, praise the infinite. Love is a spring submerged, every separate drop, a whole new life. I placed one foot on the wide plain of death, and some grand immensities sounded on the emptiness. I have felt nothing ever like the wonder of that moment. The wonder of it all. This life and its challenges will keep us moving forward, no doubt. Time stops for no one. My beloved friends, this moment is but one moment in time, and I invite us to be present for whatever may come up in this one moment. Sit directly in the pain or sit directly in the joy and treat them, if you are able, as the same. Always remember that there is another moment just ahead and change is inevitable, but suffering is not. Love is a gift that we can cherish or squander. The choice is ours. Which will we choose? Whatever we choose, pain is the price we pay for love. And I, for one, am willing to take the chance, be willing to pay it when the time comes. Whatever you choose, hear me. I will grieve with you. I will pass time with you. I will dance in joyfulness with you. And I wholeheartedly love each and every one of you. In time, with our energy, hard work, compassion, and commitment, I believe that this life will get better. The good news I bring you this morning is the silver lining, that change is coming for sure, without a doubt, because it always does. Change is always just around the corner. May we create and be the change that we wish to see and greet it together with open arms. Let us take a moment in silent reflection, meditation, and prayer. We thank you for your generosity. Let us join in saying our unison extinguishing of the chalice, which is located in your order of worship. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Good and loving people, our time in worship has come to an end. I leave you with these words. There is too much hardship in this world to not find joy. Every day, there is too much injustice in this world not to right the balance every day. There is too much pain in this world not to heal every day. Each of us ministers to a weary world. Let us go forth now and do that which calls us to make this world more loving, more compassionate, more filled with the grace of tolerance in the face of weariness and injustice, each and every day. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.